Just a quick 2-minute video. You've seen some of my other videos, hopefully. You've liked, you subscribe. This one's just showing you that the Super Nintendo is running via a micro USB on-the-go adapter, the Nintendo Classic firmware. So I'm turning it on now. Power's on. I have a custom boot screen for my Super Nintendo Classic, which looks like that. And it's booting the firmware for the NES Classic from a micro SD card. So there you go. All the games that you'd be getting on the NES Classic working on an SNES Classic. So I'll just launch one of the games. There's Pac-Man, exactly as you'd expect. Just going to reset there, take it back to the menu. And just to show you that this is external and there's no trickery, just going to power off the device, and then I'm going to take this out once it's powered down. So now we've just got basically the power going directly into the Nintendo and the SNES. Turning it on. I find some people, think it's very, very difficult to think that this is actually real and happening, and that's why doing it live is always the best way of showing you. So there it is. There's my internal games. I've just kept it very, very vanilla flavoured. I haven't put anything else on there, and as you can see, I've got saves. But as soon as I put this memory stick in, which I've chosen to use a micro SD card adapter with a micro SD card in there. Occasionally it doesn't boot, it goes straight to the internal. As I said, but usually it gets the idea and boots to the USB. I'm not sure whether or not it's my memory card or my setup that's not quite great, but I'm starting to think about ordering a different on-the-go adapter. It's not the USB card, because the USB memory stick and micro SD card seems to work perfectly in the Windows Surface Pro. It's always when booting, really. So let's see. Ah, no, that looks like it's working because it's taken a little bit longer to load, to get past that splash screen. So there we go. So I would say let's see if we can boot the Japanese. I know this is a little bit longer than a couple of minutes, but I really want to try and see if the Japanese firmware boots without any issues. Okay. Occasionally my dock disconnects. Okay. So let's have a look. What have we got? To the firmware folder. Sorry for the connection problem there, but yeah, we've replaced the Japanese firmware now on the memory card in the firmware folder. And the games folder has just been commented out, if you like. I've just put an underscore there, so it should boot to all the games on the memory stick. So let's take this out with the Japanese firmware on. Let's put it in the SNES Mini and boot that. Now, as I've already said, sometimes it doesn't boot to the USB first time. Fingers crossed we'll get the Japanese. No, that's gone internal. So I'll do what I did last time to see if we can get it going, which is just take it out, stare at it, put it back in. Make sure everything's in there firm. and see if it takes a little bit longer to boot now, and hopefully we'll get the Japanese NES Classic firmware booting from a USB. That seems promising. There we go. So what we have right now, European Super Nintendo Mini, USB on the go, micro SD card in an adapter with a Japanese NES firmware on, NES Classic firmware. That is fantastically good, and of course it's got all the games there, so let's see, what should we play? So many great games. I think there was some unique to Japan games on here, weren't there? I think from what Kylan says, there was a puzzle game that was unique. Just look at the artwork, absolutely fantastic. Wow. I'm guessing that might be Excite Bike. Yep, Super C. Let's try this one. So if you've looked at the other videos on my channel, you'll know that I tried doing this with the Japanese SNES Classic firmware, and for some reason it kind of only showed the internal games that were on the internal memory instead of the Japanese games. Not quite sure what was going on there. Obviously I've only got one hand to control here, but that works really well. Ah, the reset works as well, which is good. Down and select. Oh, this is going to be fantastic, because I've got several NES Classic controllers. Let's get over here. So it should mean, there we go. So fingers crossed, I can just plug that in. That's great. So in effect, I have got an NES Classic here running via USB on the SNES hardware. As you can see, this is just a cheap third-party controller that I got off eBay. That is great news. Fantastic stuff. I hope you liked the video. Please give me a thumbs up. It's taken a while to get this right, but fantastic. I'm just going to kind of load up the USB with games now as well on top of what we got here. And away we go. Thanks for watching, guys. Any questions, comments, please put them below the video. I'll see if I can get to answering some of them. Thank you very much as usual for subscribing.